Well, good morning, everybody. I'm going to start you off today by looking at some upper-level water vapor imagery. So we're using the infrared satellite data to measure basically the contribution to the radiation leaving the Earth only from water vapor. There's a very unique band of radiation that's leaving at the Earth at this wavelength that we can watch the attenuation of to see where the water vapor is concentrated. That's kind of how this algorithm works. And as we watch this, we're seeing these two big events we've been talking about now for 8 or 9 days, right? So we have the deep low that's finally coming out here into the plains. This is going to produce quite a bit of precipitation right along this frontal boundary and through here, including the risk of some strong to severe storms. And we watch the pulse of tropical moisture that was kind of a combination of a system coming out of the Bay of Campeche plus the stronger winds, some of the support from the water vapor out of the top of Lydia and Max. And that was the heavy rainfall event that moved over yesterday in parts of the south and southeast. Today, the risk of severe weather continues for parts of Florida as we watch storms even this morning continue to pop down here. But I want to show you something kind of unique about this. And I want to thank my colleague Jeff Frame, professor at the University of Illinois, a good friend of mine, for pointing this out. You know, when we look at the water vapor imagery, you can actually see the short waves. We talk about these waves moving through the flow and how you can get rising motion or sinking motion out of them. And the water vapor is really good at showing us that. And this wave that you're going to watch come out here again one more time, there it is, this guy right in through here. This is a short wave on the back side of the deep upper level low we talked about for most of this week that was sitting here over Ontario and Quebec, the one that produced the snow, the cloud cover, and some of the rain that got into parts of the Great Lakes in New England. Now that short wave actually originated on the other side of this deeper long wave trough. And it came all the way around through the Canadian Maritime and has found its way back. By the end of the day today, will be in Montana. I find that fascinating that the atmosphere is pulling that wave against the westerly flow, but that's how deep this upper level low is just sitting and spinning in this area. So I just thought I'd share that with you today. One thing to note, there is drier air behind this. You can see how much drier air is coming in behind this large, leaf of moisture, this plume of moisture that's coming out in this area. But let's go ahead and have a look at the radar just to kind of compare a couple of things. So there's the frontal boundary we talked about all week. You can see the rain kind of spreading out on it this morning. So right into there's a very sharp contrast in temperatures. North of that, much cooler than it is to the south of it. And that's going to be the area over which this deep low that's trying to emerge is going to run. But over the last 10 to 12 hours, some decently heavy rains have gotten into parts of the southeast. And why this is just so critical to see this is because as of yesterday morning, when this map is valid, okay, whoops, not that one, this one. As of yesterday morning when this map was valid, it's always got a day lag on it. This was an area that we watched sliding further and further into drought. Now, we're going to get a new drought monitor later today, and it will not include the rainfall that you see right here. And that's because, remember, our drought monitor is built on Tuesday, released on Thursday. So it's not going to include this. It's certainly not going to include any of this, which means it's going to continue to show probably drought expansion in this area despite the rains that came in after the monitor was produced. Okay, so just wanted to point that out. Otherwise, we do have more rain. There's actually several more systems coming into the Pacific Northwest, primarily going to be hitting coastal Washington and Oregon. And we do have another system about a week from now that's going to be moving through the midsection of the country, so we better get in there and kind of talk about those things. First, I did want to show you, now this map is only valid through 7 p.m. last night. They're going to update this later on this morning. Usually takes them about, I think almost about 8:30, 9 o'clock Central Time before we get the newest map out. But we've already seen some snow in the Cascades and the Rockies right here, especially kind of in like the Payette National Forest, north of that, north of the Snake River Valley and coming out into Yellowstone here. But as you're going to see, there is the risk today. There's winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories in this area. So we're going to continue to see the risk of snow like in the Black Hills and then throughout Wyoming and then eventually into parts of Nebraska. But that's going to be a hard forecast to figure out how much snow is going to be coming out in Nebraska here. I'll show you in a few moments. Freeze warnings on the backside, pretty cold air and windy. This is all red flag warning, high wind watches, high wind warnings, and wind advisories. So this system is really going to pack a punch, and it looks something like this by the middle of today. So let's look at all of the systems we need to talk about. There's our frontal boundary to the south. That's the upper level disturbance that came out of the Bay of Campeche, still delivering rainfall here. So risk of severe weather in Florida today. Here's the low we're going to watch curl up, very well defined warm front. Here is where we're going to watch the main kind of boundary, the moisture boundary to the south, but there's the main cold front right in through here. But then just take a look at the North Pacific. 1, two big systems lined up here, one in the Bering Sea, one in the Gulf of Alaska. They've got pretty potent fronts to their south, which are going to eventually hit the Pacific Northwest. Now, I'm concerned a lot about the wind with this system, so we're going to run the latest high-res NAM model just out over the next 60 hours to kind of see where the model is putting down the risk of the strongest wind. So you see in here, we're looking at wind gusts, okay? But there is the risk of 40 to 50, maybe 60 mile an hour winds, synoptic scale winds with this system. And of course, they're starting in the southwest now, but they're going to be building into the midsection of the country as we go on. And this has been a constant narrative with this system. There's still some stronger winds leaving too with this system down in Florida. In fact, that is where we still have today. Let's shrink that up. Here we go. The risk, slight risk of severe weather. But later on this afternoon, we're going to keep an eye right around the center of the low, what we call the triple point for the strongest forcing. But there will likely be a pencil-thin line of storms that kind of shows up to the south of this, getting all the way down into parts of Oklahoma and Texas as well. It'll be kind of interesting to watch those on satellite later this afternoon. As we get into tomorrow, the low moves over parts of Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois. It's going to deliver some locally very heavy rainfall. The risk of severe storms is not as high as it is today, but there will be some stronger thunderstorms that likely are still with this system as it moves off in this direction. Okay, I did want to check in to see if we had any snow going so far this morning. So when we look at these station diagrams, let's take a look at this one. 43 is the temperature. 41 is the dew point temperature. We have some light rain, gusty winds at 27 miles an hour, but sustained at 27 knots, sustained at 15 knots out of the north. So you can find the low. It's right here this morning. But I had to go pretty far to the west before I saw a couple of asterisks there, which indicate snow. So this has still got quite a bit of transition to go through to drop these temperatures off in this area. Like right now in Nebraska, we're in the 50s and it's raining. So this is an area of transition later today, and we're going to kind of watch that snow come out. So high-res models are suggesting that through the morning we're going to see things evolve like this. So this is through about 2 o'clock this afternoon. So you can see that snow pushing forward, the heavier rain shield kind of opening up here, and just tight spacing of the isobars indicates those stronger winds. All right, so through this afternoon and this evening, okay, right up in here in the triple points where we're going to watch the strongest storms. That's going to be, the threat this evening and tonight. And we're just going to watch for the potential for some snow to come out of Wyoming, Black Hills, getting into parts of Nebraska. So this is tonight, getting into the early morning hours tomorrow morning. So there's the main cold front. Here's the main upper level front. The newest model runs have shown some separation in these two. So heavier rains moving into western Illinois, out of this part of Missouri and Iowa, stretching into Wisconsin, back up into Minnesota, and then still raining. Some cold rain coming into parts of Nebraska. Nebraska too, but mostly South Dakota here as well. All right, so this is tomorrow morning, getting through the middle of the day tomorrow. That's where we could expect to see some stronger thunderstorms. Then we play this out through the evening. There's the second push of storms. This is going to be coming in on the cold front. Behind it, a pretty big swing in temperatures through Saturday morning. And that's when this system, starts to push its heavier rainfall into the eastern Great Lakes, Pennsylvania, through the mid-Atlantic and down here into parts of the Appalachian Mountains as well. All right, total accumulated precipitation, just a new update from the WPC. The risk of getting better than an inch and a half here is relatively high. Same thing for about parts of Pennsylvania to New Jersey. We continue just to see that same drier region overall in this the lower Mississippi River Valley after yesterday's rainfall. And there are at least two more systems coming into the Pacific Northwest, but they're not going to plow through the United States like this one did. They're going to hit the Northwest and kind of sit and spin out there. Now, just thinking about what's going on down here in the lower Mississippi River Valley, I did want to take you to the latest update on the Mississippi River at Memphis. And this morning, 11.26 feet below low stage. So it is almost matching where we were a year ago. We got down there. Actually, no, we're lower than a year ago. Last year it got down almost to 11 feet. I'm watching this number right up here. Almost to 11 feet. And here this morning we're below that. So lower river levels now. How much of this, moisture that we just showed you, where was that? Too many tabs open, sorry. Somewhere in here I had the moisture. Oh, it was actually on this one. There we go. Some of this is going to get into the river, but a lot of that's going to go soaking into the soil in this area that desperately needs to see that recovery. So that river is going to continue to get lower in the near term. All right, I was watching where the pattern goes 10 days from now. because we continue to see deep troughs over the east, and I want to know if we do truly get blocked up coming out of the Bering Sea and north of Hawaii. And this could be spurred along by some other northern hemisphere blocking, like over parts of Scandinavia. But how we get there is this. Okay, so this is now. So here's the wave we're watching going underneath this big ridge that's over Canada. Then we see multiple short waves. You just see these little waves kick out right into the Pacific Northwest around the deeper trough that's in the Gulf of Alaska. And we got another one there Monday. And there's another one that goes into British Columbia by next Tuesday, Wednesday. And while that happens, we do have another wave that comes through the Midwest. So that's about a week from now. That's the next system we're going to be watching. But I get out here pretty far, and I see the pattern settles into something that gets a little blocky, in my opinion. So the flow tends to get stuck, something like that. And we need to see what that means in terms of dryness for the week 2 forecast. Now, before we get there, of course, we've got the storm system to deal with. So we've already watched through where it makes it through the eastern Great Lakes. There we go. Let's pick this up on Saturday afternoon. Really well represented in both models here. And this system is going to spin off the coast. Models are well timed here through Sunday, leaving the mid-Atlantic. And at that point, we're going to watch a deeper upper level low sit here, high pressure and colder conditions and some windy conditions over the weekend move along the back side of this. But then you can see here, by Monday, big area of high pressure moves in, calming things down. And we're going to watch to see if the atmosphere recovers. Now what happens is on Monday, look at the west coast. Big low that curls up there toward British Columbia. That's the next system that brings in its front here, Monday. And then there's one that follows it. See, this goes up into British Columbia. And as that one follows, there will be that little shortwave that gets ejected. The European model next Wednesday puts the low here. The GFS is much farther to the south there, but they both have the system. Just the point is to say that midweek next week, we've got another low that's coming out of the midsection of North America. Where it will be, it's still going to be up to kind of watching where the high pressure center out ahead of it is. So just notice the high in the GFS is planted right here in Ontario. The high over for the European model is much farther to the east and weaker. So as a result, this low is a bit farther to the north rather than getting pushed to the south like it does in the GFS. But there's a low that comes through and delivers another shot at rain, and that seems to just be this week on, week off pattern we talked about. Okay, total rainfall. Let's go ahead and add it up. Now, this is the 0Z run, so it includes some of the rain from last night. Okay, you got that in here. But as we play this forward, we're looking at total accumulated precip. We're going to pause this out here at 1 week, which is right there, and take a look at these totals. Now, remember, when you get into these shades on my color bar, we're talking about 1 to 2 inches of rainfall. And by the way, you can get all of this at agweather.com. So you can just AG-WX, you can go find this right on the site and play it for yourself on your phone, or you can play it on your computer. It's all right there for you. But that's the European model, and this is the GFS. So they're both in pretty good agreement on the placement of the rainfall going forward. I like that. I like good model agreement. Let's take a look at the snowfall. To this, I'm going to flip over to the ensembles and look at the chances, okay? So when I think about what's coming out of Wyoming and Colorado, out of the mountains, we're going to watch these two areas here, which have a chance of getting better than an inch of snow. Of course, in the Black Hills, we're looking at much more, but we're looking right in through here at the chances. And here's the probability of 3 inches. So it's low, but there will be some snow flying with this system. Okay, so let's just keep an eye on that. Okay, total probability of 10-day probability of an inch. And let's step it up to 2 inches. So we're really looking for that wettest corridor in through here in the Pacific Northwest. Again, a lot of this is right now and last night, because this is the 0Z run. The 12Z runs don't come out for another about 6 hours, from the European at least. From the GFS, it's a little bit earlier. And on the dry side of this, there we go. That's the half. Oops, forgive me. There we go. This is the dry side of it. Canadian Prairie, much of the Southwest, much of the Great Basin, and then this whole region that's getting missed by this system. Okay, as I mentioned, by week 2, I want you to see that it is also in the ensembles that we've got these two features. And it just seems to leave what happens after the next 7 days there. And what I mean by that is troughs over the east, some slight ridging in the west to the central part of the United States. And that pattern, this type of pattern, is convergent. So why I'm telling you this is that change is why the week 2 model runs have gone a little drier for not only the West, but the central United States. and it's been in all models. The only one that's still hanging on to its wetter risks here, and that's probably just capturing that second system. Remember how the GFS dipped that system lower, whereas the European took it farther to the north? I should have said south and north. That could be what we're talking about here, because that's at the very beginning of week 2. But that's overall what we've got for the week 2 model comparison. Okay, let's talk about the temperatures. Big warm up ahead of this system, major cool down behind it. This is the 24-hour temperature change. So we're another 10 to 20 degrees above where we were yesterday at this time. But there is cold air coming behind it. And as you can see, the frost risk over the next 7 days is primarily confined to the much colder air that's going to follow this system. So you can see right in through here where we're expecting that. All right, watching those temperatures, as we talked about all week, major changes coming for the southern plains. Today's highs, I mean, this is just perfect. You can just see where the low is. There's your cold front. I often don't draw these, but you got it. There's your warm front. I got to put the half circles. Oops, there we go. So I'm drawing this with my finger here. And anyway, you got that all set up. Well, watch. Tomorrow that progresses. We drop the temperatures off 30 degrees. Then we go forward, and there's going to be some places here that if you look at the full diurnal swing, we're talking about almost a 50-degree swing in temperatures in some places in the plains. Maybe not quite that high, but pretty chilly. Remember, on Saturday, as this low spins up, a lot of windy conditions in through here as well. And then there's Sunday and Monday. So notice where we get. By Monday, there's that weak ridging, okay? Broader trough over the east. And yeah, there's a little short wave that tries to sneak over the top of that ridge. But overall, we just kind of continue to see rebounding warmth in the west with more cooler air to the east. And the next 5 days, all the way out to day 5 through 10, show that. And it continues as we work our way to the very end of October. We could be favoring more mild conditions west, cooler conditions east overall with this particular pattern. Okay, my last few slides. Just going to kind of give some new ideas about the long range. I'm still building more information into this. I've made this case that I think the MJO is the most dominant thing. I think it's being spurred along by the Indian Ocean Dipole, the IOD. But interesting model trend here in the newest European run. So this is now looking at October 22 to November 22. And it wants to take the jet stream, bring it in like this, bring it over the top with a subtropical component in like that. Now, you've seen me draw arrows like this many times, splitting across the west, opening up the Gulf. And I look at it and I say, okay, I need to see subtropical jet reforming before I buy into this, because this is not a pattern. The model is not advertising what I thought it would do, which was drop deep lows in this area, bringing up this moisture. It's not doing that. It's actually trying to split the flow over the top, bring it back around the bottom, and meet everything in this area. Now, we need this. It's not want. We need this to happen. We've got to get the moisture into these very dry areas here. But I've taken this with a grain of salt. I will tell you that the week 3, week 4 CFSV2 is kind of showing something similar. That's October 26 to November 1. November 2 to November 8. It's suggesting a lot more activity, a little bit different configuration than the European model. But we weigh these both against each other, compare it to our meteorological knowledge. And the meteorology side of this says, okay, history, November's dry when you have El Nino events. But as I've made multiple statements, I don't think this is a typical El Nino. It's certainly not the most dominant factor controlling the pattern right now. So I look at this and say, all right, I pulled off all these Novembers when we had El Ninos and they were drier here, but the models come out wetter. And I think the models may have it right, but I don't know that it's for the right reason. Let me explain what I mean here. I am hung up on this. That straight up and down position of sinking air over phase 4 and 5 of the MJO, the rising motion over phase 1 and phase 8, that tells me that the Indian Ocean Dipole is the most dominant tropical teleconnection right now. And if it continues to do that, and we get this phase 8, phase 1 view of things, this is what the jet stream tends to do. So you see, if it's November and we're in phase 1 and there is an El Nino, we just get really active jet stream dynamics coming around broader troughs that are centered here. Now that's not split. That's not this. That's much more active. And why does it open up the Gulf? Well, if you get a ridge in place here, the flow's coming around like this. And I see this, and that's phase 1, by the way. If it's in phase 8, if I can click on this, sorry, it's kind of the same thing. Here it is, phase 1, phase 8. Across North America, we still get troughs west and ridges east. So I don't know. I'm waiting to see who wins this little battle here, and that's why I've not provided a lot of new long-range updates this week. But this is what I'm watching at this point. So could we get here? Sure, I think it is, but I don't think it's because of the way the model's predicting it. I think it's because of the dynamics of the flow introducing better rainfall in a place we desperately need it. I'm not going to hold my breath, though. I got to watch it carefully. All right, let's transition to South America. This has been an interesting trend all week. We've watched drier conditions start to move in to a big area of Mato Grosso, getting over to Goiás and Tocantins here. Near normal rainfall, getting farther to the south, and we continue to see the much wetter conditions here. Argentina is still relatively dry, although newest model runs did put better rains into northern Argentina. But it's down here in Cordoba, over towards Santa Fe, and into Buenos Aires, and Rosario, that we need to get the rainfall. And that's not where it is. It's much farther to the north. It'll help out the Parna River, but it's hitting this area that's been flooding for weeks anyway. But I do want to pay attention to this. We'll get new crop progress reports tomorrow. My guess is this is not going to slow folks down. There is still rain in this. It's just below the climatological average. Okay, 10 days out, we're sitting about an inch in deficit according to the models. Just means that the monsoonal flow is a bit weaker right now. But I don't know. I think they still plant fast into this. It may open up more windows to get going if the rain's expected to come back. Last thing I want to tell you about is just this over here. I've been watching carefully satellite data, trying to get a clue about what's going on in Siberia. And you say, well, why? Well, you say you want a long-range forecast. I got to know what the snowpack looks like here. This is all cloud. I can't really see what the snowpack looks like right now. But as we get into November, we'll see the October snowfall numbers, and that'll give us a good indication of what the Arctic's going to do. It'll give us an idea about what's happening with several different factors. And one big one that I've kind of not yet really fully addressed because I wanted to see how it transitioned this fall is this way upper level circulation. We often don't even talk about it, but I'll show it to you real quick. Why not? Earth. You come here. Let's go way up here to 70 millibars. And what I want to talk about are the winds way up at this level and their component right along the equator. And as we look at this, we can look at it the whole globe over. What we're trying to understand is what this component of the wind that high up in the atmosphere means to something called the quasi-biennial oscillation, the QBO. You may have heard of a couple other meteorologists talk about it. It's been in this easterly phase for a while. What we're going to do in the new long range, which we'll put out tomorrow or Monday, is kind of talk about those analog years where it's been in some similar position. Now, these are kind of complicated diagrams, so I'll break it down and show what I mean, but I just wanted to give a little teaser on some of the new stuff I'm working on. So we have multiple things moving around, from El Nino to the Indian Ocean Dipole to Siberian snowpack, the Bering Sea, Arctic sea ice, and now we're talking about 10 miles above our heads what the winds are doing up there. So we'll stitch it all together and try to give you my best estimate of to what it's all going to do, and I'll do that for you. If not tomorrow, I'll make sure I'm prepared over the weekend and give it to you next week. So have a good rest of your week, and we'll talk again in the morning. Thanks.